Now, there were many highlights in yesterday's Congressional UAP hearing. Leave your highlights down in the comment section below. My personal highlight was when Jaime Maussan was struggling so hard to not fall asleep while Mr. Nucatelli was talking. Okay, he's right. It's so tough. I wanted to just give him a nudge and be like, bro, come on, man. You're in the room. You shouldn't fall asleep. It's on camera. I think nobody noticed. But that was my personal highlight. However, the video, or the moment that everyone talked about most, is obviously the viral UFO video, this amazing, highly speculated and discussed UFO video that Eric Burlison showed us, and I obviously want to show you guys what I'm talking about. So the clip allegedly shows a UFO deflecting a Hellfire missile, or being struck by a Hellfire missile. This was filmed by an MQ-9 drone, allegedly on October 30th, 2024, and you see it on screen here. That is the footage taken straight from the original Congressional video, which I'm linking down in the description as well, so you can check it out yourself. Elliptical object flying one straight trajectory, and there comes this other object hitting it. So obviously the other object is implied to be the Hellfire missile that then hits the object, and the object keeps flying despite losing pieces here, right? Like, that's the allegations. That's what they spoke about in Congress. All the debris that spun off the object seems to be flying in the same trajectory. And then you get this other shot here from above where they're like, okay, this is like a zoomed out shot where the object seemingly still flies in the same direction. And we've seen it took serious damage. If this would be a drone or maybe a balloon, right, it may collapse. It may immediately fall to the ground, like a drone, for example, would not be able to fly anywhere once it's hit and shows damage as we've seen it in this clip. So let's look at some opinions, some theories, skeptical theories, as well as believer theories, and analyze what we can from this footage that we have now. Now, first of all, I think what is very important to mention is that Eric Burlison actually also gave an interview on News Nation. And in that interview, he speaks a little bit about how he has obtained this footage, how he got his hands on the footage, because we have information, right? Like, it's the MQ-9 drone, October 30th, 24, Hellfire missile. How do we know this? Let's listen to what Eric Burlison has to say in this interview.
I've watched it a bunch. Now our audience has watched it several times. Tell me what we saw.
Yeah, it's a remarkable video. I received it anonymously with what it's in it.
Me and the host both are like, I received it anonymously. Wait a second. That raises a whole bunch of questions, but let's keep going, okay? October 30th, right? It says it here on the tapes, on the screen. So I guess that's where he got that from. I assume he didn't impose that himself.
In a way in which I've learned is called a dead drop. The video was scrubbed from all information. So, and that's why I'm saying...
What's a dead drop? Hold on one second. What's a dead drop?
Completely anonymously. There's nothing to trace back to, and I have no idea who gave it to me. So
I received an envelope, and on that envelope was completely anonymous, but it wrote like, "Trust me, bro," on top. It was written in big black letters, so I did. It was written with a Sharpie, so I would absolutely trust that over anything else. I'm making that part up. He didn't say that he found it in an envelope that said, "Trust me, bro." But it is wild to me that he's like, I received it completely anonymous. There was no context given to me. And I was like, where did we get this information from? How do we know it was shot by an MQ-9 drone? Because, as he says himself, all information has been redacted, right? There's nothing on screen that implies where or what specific camera on what plane or device would have filmed this. So I don't understand why the host of News Nation, or maybe I do understand, to be honest with you, doesn't ask that question. It's like, if you have been given no context with this, how do you know? How do you know it was a Hellfire missile? How do you know it was an MQ-9 drone? But anyway, let's keep watching. It's almost over, this video.
I decided I could either sit on it and try to like spend time. I don't have the resources to do forensic on video.
Look, I just get things and then I share them with people. I don't have the time to look at the authenticity of this footage. That's not my job.
So either I could sit on it, but look, I'm a disclosure guy. I'm just going to let the internet figure out the validity of this video. And so that's kind of the posture that I took.
Right. And therefore I presented in front of Congress. I could have shared it on my Twitter 2 weeks ago. I could have said, here's the video, guys. Make of it what you want. No, this is the big viral moment. This is the best, kind of, some may say, that we got out of the UAP congressional hearings. Oh, God, dude. I understand that people who share footage like this, if they're in the military, for example, don't necessarily want to be named publicly, right? So they would submit footage like this anonymously. It makes sense. But I didn't hear that in the congressional hearing. I feel that is a somewhat important part of the story. And maybe he said it and I just missed it, okay? But I didn't hear him say that he received it as from it like a dead drop. But again, I'm happy to stand corrected. If he said that he received it anonymously as a dead drop in the congressional hearing, then I just missed it. All right, this is where I heard it. So I feel this is an important detail. He received it anonymously, and to be honest with you, that means it could be literally anything. It could literally be a test firing against a target balloon, for example. It could be that the military intentionally released some form of target and then struck it with a missile. I mean, obviously they do that. They filmed it, the footage looks somewhat mysterious, you leak it without any context, and everyone kind of goes wild. Which then also would mean that the object was completely identified, right? They knew it was a target they are trying to hit with that missile, a known target, but you wouldn't know that if you only see the footage and if you receive it anonymously. The other question that some people are raising on social media is the footage that we see afterwards was obviously presented in the congressional hearing as, look, it was hit and it keeps flying. It's indestructible, therefore UFO or alien. But we don't really know whether this footage was shot afterwards or beforehand. It can easily be edited. If you receive this, I assume he received this digitally, right? Like on a USB stick, that drop, whatever. Someone got this USB stick to him. You don't know if the person who put that video on there edited this around. Maybe we'll find something like this out later when we do more analysis of the metadata of the video and so on. But right now, I don't know if this was before or after. It adds a great layer of incredibility almost to it if it was shot after it being hit and like spawning debris and stuff. But was it really shot afterwards? We don't really know. Also, it has to be mentioned that based on the videos we have, we cannot determine the height of this object. It could be 5 meters over what looks to be water or 100 meters over it. It's impossible to guess. And because we can't determine the height of the object, it is impossible to say, for example, that these objects here continue flying at the same height, because I've seen tweets like this, at the same height as the rest of the debris. It's like, oh, look, they're almost flying in an orbit around the object. I've seen posts like this. No, this to me very much looks like an object that flies at a considerable height, and by that I mean like, I don't know, 200-300 feet, maybe more, and then and I'm speculating, right? And then gets hit, and then the object actually flies to the ground. It decreases in altitude because it's been hit, and so do all the other pieces that fly with it, because we know that if you hit a solid object, somewhat solid, it could be a balloon with a satellite underneath or something, obviously, but if you would hit a solid object, the debris will fly with the object because it has the trajectory, right? It has the momentum, whatever these forces are called. But it makes no sense that if you hit a moving object that has momentum, that the pieces, the debris that flies off of it suddenly have no momentum anymore. They would absolutely fly with the object. So what we see in the clip here as the object is being hit, to me at least, I saw this and I was like, that makes perfect sense. Like how the debris keeps flying with the object, hurtling towards the ground. Now the current leading theory is that it is a balloon. We get comments like this one from the Good Trouble Show with Matt Ford. He says, unfortunately, I'm confident this was a balloon. A real image analyst needs to make a determination. What was important was what was said today at the hearing under the incredible leadership of Luna and these brave witnesses who spoke the truth. I love this tweet because it sounds like he's basically saying, yeah, I think your video is garbage, bro. That it's not real, it's a balloon. But incredible bravery today. You guys are so brave, right? It feels like you're telling a 6-year-old, like a toddler, how brave he is when he went into the woods by himself to get a stick. That was very brave. But let's look at this theory for a second. A balloon, right? A balloon would be made maybe out of some rubber material, some foil material, maybe some fabric. We don't really know. If it would be a balloon like this, would it make sense that a missile hits it, almost flies through it, and it doesn't immediately lose integrity and fall to the ground? Let's assume for a second that the footage that Eric Burlison claims was shot afterwards was actually shot afterwards, right? The balloon, if it is a balloon, kept flying. That makes no sense. It's just been hit by, allegedly, a Hellfire missile, okay? It should really disintegrate quickly and just straight fall to the ground, as you would imagine a balloon do, especially considering that the debris that flies off the object looks mechanical, right? Like I said earlier. So it very much looks like, and actually you can see a little bit of like a shape change and a flapping movement over here that may imply something like a just hit balloon that is now deflating as it hurtles to the ground. But the pieces here, they look mechanical. So maybe it is a balloon with a satellite underneath. You know, we all saw the Chinese spy satellite, a story at the time where like a device is mounted under a balloon to take photos and films or whatever over adversary grounds. So it could be something like that. They hit the balloon. They also caused the device or the satellite to shatter. And that's then how it looks. But let's look at this balloon popping question. Would the balloon not pop? There is an interesting story that I found that I want to share with you guys. This is from Business Insider, and it reads, when a weather balloon went rogue almost 25 years ago, fighter jets fired 1,000 rounds at it and couldn't bring it down. The balloon entered Icelandic airspace and drifted north towards Norway. Balloons like the Chinese spy balloon over the US don't always pop or explode when shot, which also makes a lot of sense. If you are a military operation, you want to make sure that if your balloon pops over adversary land, that it doesn't immediately fall to the ground. You want to have safety precautions in place that keeps that balloon afloat as long as possible. Don't ask me how they do that, but that makes sense from a thinking point of view if you're military. The text also reads, a Canadian military spokesperson, a lieutenant named Steve Wills, told BBC that it was difficult to target the balloon, even though it was about the size of a 25-story building. A 25-story building, dude, that is a huge balloon. And that the failure to take it down wasn't embarrassing. It wasn't embarrassing at all. No, that was fine. Happens all the time. With something like this, which is stationary in the air when the CF-18s are flying very, very fast, it's difficult to shoot it. The CF-18s were reportedly equipped with air-to-air missiles, but Canadian Major Roland were refraining from using them. So they didn't use missiles, and specifically, obviously, they didn't use Hellfire missiles, okay, to bring that balloon down. However, they did have to shoot over 1,000 bullets at this balloon, penetrated significantly over an extensive period of time, which then ultimately led to it falling to the ground. But it means they don't immediately always fall to the ground. And there are more skeptics out there sharing similar thoughts, like, for example, disclosure memes here, saying, definitely not a popular opinion, and I could be wrong, but after reviewing the moment of impact several times on a large screen, it looks to me like a missile striking a balloon. The balloon seems to rupture, its fragments drifting down and billowing softly like a freshly deflated object. Zoom in and watch it for yourself. Once the camera pans out, I can't say. I'm not familiar with missile platforms or how they behave after passing through soft airborne targets. So obviously these are just opinions, people sharing their opinions online at the moment. There's also an interesting video by Billy Kryzak, which has posted on X and YouTube. This one is on Reddit. I'll link it down in the description. He goes into a bit more detail about why he thinks it is not a balloon. So it is worth watching. It is a 3-minute video, so I'm not going to watch it here now during this video. But anyway, you can check it out yourself. He's making those points. So there are both sides. Now we looked more at the skeptic side, right? We looked at people claiming it's a balloon and why it could be a balloon and so on. Let's look at some of the believer side, right? What do people say who believe it is not a balloon? Like, for example, the UAP Reporting Center here says, a professional analysis of the Hellfire missile UAP concludes the object was not a balloon. After reviewing the breakdown, I'm convinced it was not a balloon. But he says a professional analysis concluded this. Is this the professional analysis? Wait a second. No, that's not. He didn't post the professional analysis anywhere. Maybe he's referring to this guy that I saw here. Maybe we should watch it. Let's listen to it. Okay. I hope Billy cries. Okay, don't copyright strike my video. Okay. Let's see what he has to say.
All right. So is this a balloon or not? I really don't think it is. And all we have to do is look at the kinetic picture, right? The kinetic energy involved at the exchange that happens between the Hellfire missile and the object itself. When this thing hits, if this was a balloon, balloons have very little mass, right? They are buoyant. So they just don't weigh that much because they can only weigh as much as the air that it would, of the space of the air that it would occupy.
Right. You're implying that nothing was mounted to that balloon. Even regular weather balloons have things, tools, devices, machines mounted to them that then measure temperature and so on. So what are you saying? That this is like a Mylar balloon you get at a fairground? Is that what you're implying? The reason why it looks like the missile goes through the balloon and the balloon doesn't kind of disintegrate immediately or fly away is because probably, allegedly, it looks like something is mounted under the balloon. That gives it weight. That holds it in place. Maybe we don't see it, right? Because maybe we're filming from above, depending on the angle. But I assume weight, something heavy, that's also what we see shattering, I believe, flying away in this form of this debris. And that's what holds the balloon in place. But let's keep going. Maybe I'm jumping to conclusions here.
So that being said, if this was a balloon, the Hellfire missile would most likely just pass right through it. It would pop or rip it open. and there would be very little deflection of the Hellfire, just because you're not dealing with enough mass to really change the direction of the missile.
But that is somewhat what's happening. That is somewhat what is happening, and it's ironic that he says this, and then he shows the footage where exactly this is happening. The missile goes through the object. It does change the trajectory slightly, but that is to be expected if this is a balloon, like we saw this earlier, like several story-sized balloons. These are big structures, you know. They are not like little Mylar balloons with very thin foil. It's like specific materials. We spoke about this earlier. So I feel like he's already making a lot of assumptions here that are not helpful. That are not helpful if you really want to find out what this is. Because to say like, oh, this is just a balloon, it's like a bubble filled with air, why does the missile deflect slightly? Dude, no, I don't think that holds up. We're talking military-grade balloons here, okay? Not fairground stuff.
Direction of the missile. Not as fast as this happens, right? It's almost instantaneously. It is instantaneously. And then when you look at the object, when it takes the hit from the Hellfire, it's that Hellfire, all the energy in it is transferring into the object, and it really shifts it hard. In fact, it shifts it so hard over that the camera system loses lock on it. So bam, it is transferring so much energy to cause that much.
No, dude, because it's a balloon. Because the balloon bursts. That's why it has this bang. But that's exactly, he's showing it here perfectly, actually. That's why you can see the bubble, the egg, the Tic Tac burst out. Look at it, frame by frame. Boom, there it bursts, right? Bam. That's exactly what he's describing. But let's keep going. I want to give him one more chance. Maybe he's getting somewhere that actually makes sense, in my opinion. It's all just my opinion.
2 frames. 1, 2. 1, 2. Right. So it's really, really taking the hit, and it's holding its structure. So, you know, if it's a lighter than air object that's buoyant, I don't know what the heck it could be made of that would be able to take a hit from a Hellfire coming in at that speed, still maintain its shape.
Right, exactly. You are highlighting the problem there yourself. You have no idea what it could be made of, because I assume Billy Kryzak does not work behind the scenes at secret government facilities and works with those really cutting-edge materials that often are decades ahead of what we as consumers get our hands on. So yeah, you're right. You're answering your question there yourself almost. Like, what could it be? You have no idea what it could be, and I don't know either, but we spoke about it earlier. It is absolutely in the interest of military organizations to have balloons that if they get hit and penetrated, they don't immediately tumble to the ground like a Mylar balloon, and we've seen it in the article I read to you guys. So sure, I can see where he's coming from, but I don't think he's going into the right direction. And I might be wrong, right? I might be wrong. It might turn out that he was absolutely correct, but just now, the day after this came out, looking at it, I'm not buying into it. Another narrative that we get a lot is people saying it is a soft target, right? We had everything from people claiming that it's actually a liquid. They actually hit like an alien ship that's a liquid. Let's look at the actual footage. I can bring it up bigger for you guys so we can zoom in a little bit and look at the actual raw footage that we have. And let's see what we can make out from what we see here. So I'm going to put this up here. Okay, so there you can see it falling apart. And it is somewhat true that you can see the object itself changing shape, right? As it seems to be hit and then tumble or keep flying for that second for the time being, it changes shape. But I think, again, that very much plays into the balloon theory, because if you hit a big weather balloon, that maybe the material has some stiffness in itself. It doesn't immediately disintegrate like a Mylar balloon. Maybe even it has like a basic structure on the inside of the balloon. We don't know this, depending on the size. So that, what you see here, very much to me looks like an object that just got forcefully deflated and now tumbles to the ground. And again, we cannot determine the distance, right? We cannot determine that this actually falls to the ground, keeps flying at the same height, the same altitude. The other aspect that I want to highlight is in this footage, I forgot this earlier, that we see that allegedly happened afterwards. You do not really see any of the debris, right? So they're switching to this footage. Allegedly, it happens pretty much right after this footage. It's a shortcut to Burlison there. And then we see this. Where's the debris? Wouldn't we see it? Has that already hit the ground? There is another little white light flying next to it. I don't know if you noticed this, right? There is a little light sitting up here, right? I tried to keep it in focus for you guys. So since it looks like it's directly cutting from the other footage where we see the debris to this one, where is the debris? Where is it? So I don't know. That leaves all kinds of questions to me, honestly. Was it really shot after it was hit or before? We don't really know. I think the soft target thing also doesn't really make much sense in terms of it being alien or some kind of liquid unknown structure or something. Mick West also chimed in and he said this is just wrong. The missile was not split. It didn't bounce off. It just flew through the target, breaking it into pieces and causing it to fall out of the sky. Luna and Eric Burlison need to issue a correction or issue corrections. They also need to stop displaying last-minute UFO videos from unreliable sources. Check first. Thank you. Thank you, Mick West. That is great stuff. Yeah, please check your sources. He's obviously, in my opinion, nudging a little bit here towards Lou Elizondo, who held up a picture that then turned out to be irrigation circles. So, look, there are still people out there who look at this and who think alien life or something extraterrestrial, or at least some kind of Lockheed Martin back-engineered thing is involved here. Dude, look at everything we just went through. We don't know. You don't know. Could be, but let's be honest, chances are low. Chances that this is something of ourselves, maybe like a target practice thing that we just don't know, or maybe an adversary balloon that was shot down and filmed, and this is the footage we get now, that this is an extraterrestrial thing. I just don't see the implications here. And one big final thing is also the trajectory of the object. It just keeps flying in a straight line. It never really changes direction. You could make this argument that in the second part here, it drifts a little bit around and it seems to be changing direction somewhat, but it is nothing out of the realm that could also be caused by wind, for example, if it would be a balloon. You know, it doesn't fly in a perfectly straight line, but we're missing all the hallmarks of something that would be considered unusual. Stopping, 90-degree angles, irrational moves, stuff that, you know, Commander Fravor described to us. Suddenly it's at this point, then it's at the other point. We're missing this. Everything I see here implies at least earthly explanation to me. I can't pinpoint whether it's a balloon or not, but it doesn't look extraterrestrial. Guys, that's my opinion. These are my thoughts. We're going to talk about the whole hearing in tomorrow's live stream, and probably you're watching this 3 months later and you're like, what live stream is that? It's probably over at this point. I appreciate you watching. Thank you so much for hanging out. Thanks for supporting the channel. Thanks for continuously leaving comments, smashing like, subscribing, sharing it, whatever you guys do. It's fantastic. I love all of you. Thanks for being part of this journey. I see you guys in the next video. Take care of yourselves. Stay strong out there, and I'm out. Bye.